Thank you all for being here tonight. Well, as you know, having a visit from Kurt Russell certainly put us on the map. And it was just incredibly exciting we got the word that he somehow discovered, and we'll hear about how that he was indeed related to Jason Russell, and that there was a house that was a part of his family, and then agreed to come with one of his sons to have the visit. They wanted to keep the visit quiet, so it wasn't something that we did a lot of publicity about, because he wanted it to be more of a family kind of visit, and that's the way it really was accomplished. But there were people that were involved in making this happen, and that's what the panel tonight is about. But before we ask the panel to join us up here, we have a short video, because thanks to ACMi and Jeff Monroe, the whole visit was taped. So now you get to see some of what really happened.
Okay, here we go.
So I'm going to ask everyone not to touch any of the furniture. You can stay on the carpet, but
so this is
any
a
of the furniture,
miniature. Often the guys will refer to this as they tell the story.
So this is the house he built. This is his building.
Yes. So I will say the clapboards that you see in the siding, that was actually that was renovated.
That's a renovation.
Yes. So
This
is original. Yeah. But this side, everything from here over is all the house that he built. Of course, the house went through a little bit of renovations, transformations, but we try to reclaim it to what it would have looked like.
So this is the living room, dining room, or just dining?
This is the kitchen. It would have been called the hall in colonial
Yeah, see,
period.
that's what I'm talking about. I got one
Yep.
for gold.
Flex, I think it's flex.
We got it in Colorado, it's just like that. In one of the things I read, they were trying to find the basement, and they couldn't.
Oh,
So
well,
why?
that's the action that happened here. So in the southern flankers, they're coming from there.
Okay.
That's the south.
Yeah.
And
that wasn't there, so
Concord
they
Road,
could see that way.
Concord Road is here.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're basically, the militia that gathered on Jason's property along with Jason were aiming, they were expecting to just be exchanging with the main column. And all of a sudden they get ambushed by the southern flankers. So they're getting shot at from both directions.
Yeah.
So they scatter. Many of them are seeking shelter, so they run into the house, including Jason, who doesn't make it.
Right.
And then about 8 men from the North Shore town of Beverly run into the front of the house, and when we get into the hall, we'll show you what part was not there. It was much closer to the stairway, the entrance, than we see today. They're looking for the cellar door. It should be right across from the entrance of the house. That's where most of them were.
That's where they usually
Right.
were, I see.
But we don't know why, but Jason moved it sometime before to here, this
Yeah.
location, maybe for convenience. They
Oh,
did
maybe.
manage to get into the cellar, shut the door, train their muskets up the stairs,
Yeah.
and there was, I guess, a shootout. And
Yeah.
they survived.
So the story that you mentioned about ankle deep blood, it would have been in this kitchen.
This kitchen.
So when Elizabeth Russell comes back from out of town, she sees at least 12 bodies in and right around her house, including Jason Russell. So it's very traumatic for her, of course.
Were they aware of all of this? Was there enough information?
Oh,
sourced?
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, again, think of the printing presses, right? So there's
Yeah.
a bunch of newspapers out there. People are writing pamphlets, receiving pamphlets from other parts of the world. There are supporters of the Americans in England.
And the news of this day got to England from the colonial perspective sooner than Gage's report, because he sent it over in a slow ship,
Yeah.
and the colonists sent it over in a faster one.
Yeah.
So things got published in the English newspapers about the colonial perspective before they
The
went.
Americans were very media
Yeah.
savvy. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
They understood the
The
power
value
of public
of the
opinion.
value of
So all of this is original, and this happens to be a grazing mark from a bullet that was fired.
There you
from
go. That's from over there.
Yep,
Yeah.
from
That
from
came through a window
Concord
then?
Road. Yeah, probably.
That came
through
through
the
that
Because-
window, one of those.
this window.
Okay, over the years it was plastered
Right.
over.
Yep.
The exit hole was plastered over.
So that bullet, that ball ended up somewhere over here.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it may have been there. Yeah, yeah. We couldn't find anything in this general
It's
area,
interesting
but-
that even after the ballistic study, they found more marks, but no actual musket bullets.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we go up the staircase, you're going to see the exit holes that you saw in the kitchen on the stair risers, and they're framed in brass, so you can't miss them. So this they call the kitchen chamber because it's over the kitchen, but we dub it the children's room because there are all these markings over the fireplace
Oh.
that we think might have been little
Kids.
graffiti.
Yeah, kids.
I know, I left my mark on my parents' furniture
Yeah.
when I was 7. So.
But this was where the parents slept
No,
and the kids?
parents probably would have been in the next room.
So
And
this
of
was
course,
where all
this could have
the
shifted
trundle
over
was. So this is-
time.
So there were 6 kids.
Yeah, kids, yeah.
Of course, they were like spread out.
Right,
They were
right.
all.
And then when they get older and then more children, they had to be flexible. So they
Yeah.
might have been multi-use for this. And that's why this is not, we don't really have anything that belonged to Jason and Elizabeth,
Yeah.
except this magnificent house. But the trundle beds are very common, but the cool thing about this one is that it has a hinge here. So it was a fold-away bed, so it was like the precursor to the Murphy bed.
Oh, wow.
These are really common in taverns.
Yeah, that's the closet. So that closet is actually original. We just have our
Big
society's
closet.
records in there. Yeah, pretty deep.
It's a big closet.
So I will say
Small
too.
wardrobes.
Yes.
Nice, got a walk-in closet. Oh, smell this, boss. This is another bullet
This was
hole.
shot from the southern flankers,
Oh, okay.
From outside, obviously.
and from the outside, right?
So.
The group that ambushed. And this is the Energizer Bunny of musket balls because it crossed the room.
Where did that come from? They think
Where did what come from?
that bullet. Oh. I
From
mean,
the
it looks like it came
shot.
from there, but I mean,
No,
it's like
shot from. This is the exit.
This
hole.
is
Shot
the
from
exit,
outside.
so it's from over
The
there.
southern flankers. Shot through the house, underneath the window.
'Cause that wasn't
That's the
there.
exit hole.
It was just.
And what happened after?
It crosses
Is that-
the room. Right up here is the next hole that same musket ball made.
Oh, there we go.
Did it kill
Oh,
Jim?
look at
Okay,
this.
too?
Look at this. Yeah, boom! It was rolling. It was
And
moving.
yeah, oh, yeah.
But it's really interesting. He was probably firing through the window.
Yeah, probably.
Probably missed his shot a little low.
You'll see.
Well, yeah,
I mean-
muskets are not.
I mean,
that
well, no. I
accurate.
mean, why would you shoot? Okay, here's the thing. Again, for Hunter, there's no point in shooting a wall. But if I saw somebody rolling by here, I'm going to go for the window.
Right, of course, yeah.
That,
Well, they
I'll bet you he was
probably-
shooting at the
someone
window
shooting
from
from
out
here.
there, and it dropped and hit and went like
They were
that.
probably aiming for the window,
That's
but
what I
and they're
mean,
probably
right.
on the run too. So they're
Somebody
not-
may have been up here.
Right. That musket ball's not done.
Yeah.
It goes through
It
there
still
at
keeps
an
going.
angle,
It's
And
still
then-
going into this room.
comes out here.
Yeah, this is great. And it comes out.
Exit hole is right there.
There's the exit hole.
We do know that carpentry was a trade in the Russell family. So Jason had the help of other family members in building it. His wife also, her family, owned a sawmill. So she had the connections to make a good home.
But I thought it was really fun to see how curious he was and interested. He had done some reading of information that had been sent to him and seemed really excited. Yeah, which was just really fun. So let me tell you who's going to be up here while they're getting here. So these are people that were involved in this all happening. Number one is John Guilfoyle right there, who is of Guilfoyle Media Relations, and he was the one that really made the connection with the Russell publicity people to help get it set up. And Christine Bongiorno, who is our deputy town manager, was instrumental in helping the town to be involved and accommodating that we were good hosts for the Russell. And then Elaine, who was the star, as you saw. And Matt, who is the director here. Both Matt and Elaine really were giving them the tour and interacting with them. And then Michael Ruderman here was at the tail end, gave the tour when they went through the Arlington Village to the cemetery. So they're going to tell us how this all happened, starting with John.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm really proud and pleased to be invited today. And even prior to see that the lanyards and the credentials survived. I heard one even is on exhibit now, so that's wonderful. So my company has been around for 14 years, and Arlington was our first client. Chief Ryan, Fred Ryan was our first ever client, and we've worked with Arlington ever since. We worked with the police department, worked with public health, we worked with the schools, worked with the town. We were here during COVID. And when we started working on 250 events, our company was contracted to handle Lexington 250, which we started working on in January of 2024. But we've been talking to, we work with Concord, we've obviously worked with Arlington. And I was talking to Christine about what Arlington or Menominee 250 would look like. And we sort of began to discuss and sort of give ideas. And talking to Matt, talking to the folks in town, we learned that you had recently discovered that Kurt Russell was a descendant. I think it was 7th great grandson. I think he said 8th, but I think it was 7th or 8th great grandson of Jason Russell. So of course, me, Mr. Big Ideas here, PR guy, I said, well, let's invite Kurt Russell. And it was met with a, yeah, sure, that sounds great. So in reality, what my company did was I reached out to Kurt Russell's agent. That's who you go to. If you want to reach a celebrity, you don't go on Twitter, you go to their agent. And he has a United Artists is his talent representative, Darren Bogosian, big time Hollywood agent out in Hollywood in LA. And I reached out, I called him, and of course I got through to his assistant and told him who I was. And he said, okay, yeah, sure, can you put it in an email? Which, as someone who's worked in this world for a long time, I know that means go away. So I wrote a big long email. So I was calling on behalf of the town of Arlington, and we wanted to invite Kurt and his family to come out to tour the Jason Russell House for America 250, the site where his ancestor fought and died on the first day of the American Revolution. What I later learned was Mr. Bogosian, as he does, gives all the reports to Kurt and says, I've got all these things. Should I throw this one in the no pile with the rest of the requests? Because he gets a lot of media requests. He turns almost all of them down. And when he gave that request to Kurt, Kurt said, wait a minute, what is this? No, I want to hear more about this. And we invited him to come up for Patriots Day. We wanted him to come up in April, and schedule-wise, it couldn't work. He couldn't make April work. So we thought, okay, that's nice. He actually responded. We had some nice conversations, and it doesn't work. Then June 20th, Mr. Bogosian's new assistant, because they rotate, calls me back and says, could you hold for Mr. Bogosian? I said, sure. I got to talk to the man. And he said, Kurt would like to come on July 4th. I said, okay. Can he come on July 3rd? No, he wants to come on July 4th. And that's how this event came together. We brought it to the town, brought it to Matt. Of course, everyone, this is Arlington. I mean, there's nothing Arlington can't do at the end of the day. One of the reasons why I'm so proud, I always mention anyone who hear this is my first client, and I'm really proud of that fact because I'm really proud of this town. So we began to work logistics. And when you're bringing a celebrity, you always have to plan ahead for everything. So we had some good connections. We ended up putting him in the Inn at Hastings Park instead of putting him in Boston, which saved us a lot of trouble trying to get him in and out of Boston on July 4th weekend. We put him in Lexington. And he actually came up. He flew in to New York, and him in Boston, his son, who's not named after the city, took the train from New York, got off at Route 128, and we picked them up. And he wanted to see this. He was here on July 4th to learn about his ancestors. Now, I do public relations, and my overarching goal is to put the Battle of Menominee on the map. I want the people, not just of Massachusetts, but of the nation to understand that a lot more happened on the first day, on April 19th, than Lexington and Concord, Lexington and Concord, Lexington. You must all be so sick of hearing about Lexington and Concord. And what you saw was real. He went on the tour, and then he said, we'll do this junket style. And rather than having, because every member of the media is going to want Kurt Russell. And when he went to the Boston Pops that night, he was instantly the most famous person at the Boston Pops that night. So he did 3 waves where he did the tour over again with 3 different waves. We had TV stations, radio stations, newspapers, magazines, and we worked with influencers. So we brought in people with a large Instagram and social media following and put them in scrums. And he would come in and do the whole thing over again. He did it 4 times, once himself and 3 times with the media. He would come in, he would start by staring at the painting. And I swear, I think he looked at the painting for 2 hours.
Probably.
That day. And when we were done, our company has this software, we pull the reports. 400 million people saw the story. in all 50 states. Turns out every single market ran a version of Boston TV, and then the Associated Press was there. So it ran every market in the country. So from a purely analytic standpoint, Menominee got mentioned more times on July 4th and 5th, 2025 than any other time combined in its history. So we're really proud of that fact. But, and I'm not, I said pull the hook out when I go too long. It is all because of Kurt. Sometimes you meet these people and they surprise you. This was one of those times. And Matt and I got to spend some significant time with Kurt in Boston over that 2-day period. I was a fan, now I'm like starstruck. Yeah. You kind of went the opposite direction. I was like, oh yeah, Kurt, he's great. Now I'm like in awe of him. He was the perfect person to do this because he wanted to do the history. When he went to the Boston Pops, his idea, he wanted to go see fireworks. We said, oh, we got some good fireworks in Boston. They brought him up on stage, and all he did was talk about Arlington the whole time.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, can we ask you about? No movies, no Hollywood, nothing. I'm here to talk about Menominee. And it was really, really good. So there's my intro for you there.
Christine,
Sure.
Take it from
Sure.
the organization that you helped with.
Right, so many of you may remember last year we were planning for the big Battle of Menominee, and we were trying to get visitors to come from the Lexington and Concord. We were trying to draw them in, and I kept getting frustrated. I kept thinking, why is Lexington? Why, what can we do? And
So they hired me first.
And they hired John, and because I'm friends with John, I called him and said, this is killing us. We need help. So, and that's when we started the brainstorming. And who famous is from Arlington. Lexington has the Saturday Night Live character. Who was that? Amy Poehler.
Rachel Dratch,
Everybody
yeah.
had somebody.
Yeah.
Every community had someone. And I said, I know that the Jason Russell House is known for possibly Kurt Russell, and that's when John just ran with it. John is right. He was just such a great personality, such a great face. There was no controversy. I was really worried that we were going to have somebody that may have been throwing politics into it, or I didn't know. I was a little nervous, but I think he really did really well for the society, for the town of Arlington, just for the story. And I'm really proud of the day and what it did. And I don't think it's over. I think he wants to bring the rest of his family back. So I think that the Historical Society really needs to take advantage of it. And I was really happy that Matt got to go in the car with him to Boston and be part of the fireworks. And I think it was a really great time. I have to say I was really sad when he said he was coming on July 4th because I thought, I'm gonna miss the fireworks with my kids. But it really, and to be able to tell the story to my kids when I got home was really special. And all of the media and everything I got to show them the next day was
The media
really
was
fun.
starstruck. I mean, I'm around these people every single day.
They were.
They're talking to governors, and they were all starstruck.
They were waiting outside saying, how is he? Some of the women that, they're all glamorous when they're on the news, and they were just so excited to meet him. It was
cool.
fun. It was a lot of fun. So.
I just want to mention when Matt sent around to all of us about the meeting tonight, he had a photo of him and Kurt Russell out in the lawn. They were yucking it up, something ferocious. And I think, again, that was a part of the personality that he was. So, Matt, tell us a little about
Yeah,
and then we'll move to Elaine and then the tour.
Yeah, I think John actually took that photo, and then I saw it in one of the Your Arlington magazines, and I opened it up. I'm like, oh, there I am. Interesting. But when Kurt was here, I was starting. That was actually my 1-year anniversary in the position. So I was still relatively fresh. I was still getting used to the lay of the land and everything, and I was really intimidated when we first met Kurt over in the inn, and as soon as he came out of the room, and I'm sure everyone can agree, as soon as he came into the room, all of that just went away. Very, very down to earth, very open, and all of that starstruck feeling that you anticipate completely just went away. And when you meet celebrities, everyone goes, oh, they're just regular people. But yeah, he was just a regular guy. But to that extent, though, I think, like John was saying, like, the more that I started interacting with him, I think the more I realized, like, this is a person who is very ingrained into his local history and his ancestry, but very much has an overpowering effect to him. But that entire day, and I will remember for the rest of my life, like everyone was saying, he was genuinely and thoroughly interested in the history of the Jason Russell House, and just kept asking questions. And Elaine and Michael can attest to this too. He just kept asking questions. And going into it, I thought, it was just some celebrity, just probably doing something just to get a checklist going. But really, he was here. He was really asking questions. He led all of the groups of the media through the house, answered everything after the first round of everything we told him, and he just absorbed all of this information. Later, we went to the old burying ground across the street, and Michael was able to show him his headstone, Jason Russell's headstone, and where the other provincials have been buried. And afterwards, he comes up to me and he goes, "Am I going to see you later? Are you going to be at the Pops concert?" And I'm like, "Well, I wasn't planning on it, but when Kurt Russell invites you to the Pops concert, you go to it." So I remember sitting in one of the trailers over there, and it was just me, him, and Boston, and he was just showing me videos of his grandkids. He was showing us pictures of the house he made, and it's like, wow, like I don't know why, but I will remember that specific moment for the rest of my life. And later, I was telling him all about the history of monogamy, and I was telling him about Uncle Sam. I was telling him about all these other different things that Arlington is known for. And he's like, "Wow, this is great." And at the end of the day, he gave us a hug, and he's like, "We're definitely going to come back here." So.
That's cool.
You were certainly the star.
Well, I don't know about that. It was a group effort. I like the fact that there were other people on the tour too that could pitch in and fill in the blanks. Though I have to say, as you can probably assume, this is a tour like no other I've ever given, and not just here, because I do guided some other Battle Road houses, and I've never had a celebrity this high profile as a visitor. So I had no expectations because I didn't know what to expect. But like Matt said, when I met them on the lawn, right away, immediately, I mean, his warmth comes across, and I know anyone of a certain age, if you were like 14 when Kurt Russell was making his early movies, you probably had a crush on Kurt Russell, right? So, admit it. So, I did not want to be starstruck. I couldn't afford for that to happen. So, one of the things I did to prepare was to go online and look at every current photo of him, so I wouldn't be distracted with however he looked at the time. And then I've read enough, memoirs to know that famous people are just like the rest of us. They just want to be treated the same. So all of that, and of course, just his presence, it put me at ease immediately. In addition to his son Boston. He's definitely a people person. He has a tremendous amount of energy that sustained the whole day. I hung around 2.5 hours after the tour was over. He was still going like the Energizer Bunny. And his son, who is not in the entertainment industry, I think he's a therapist, at one point we took a picture together in the parlor, and he turned to me and he goes, "I don't usually do this media stuff," he said. And he was getting, water breaks and changed his shirt. And in the meantime, his father's going like he's just started the day. And he turned to his father and said, "How do you do this? How do you answer the same questions over and over again?" And he said, "I just remind myself that they're hearing this for the first time. And I have to say it like it's the first time." So I guess that's where the acting skills help. So as guides, we know to follow the cues of our visitors. We read their body language, we get a sense of what they want, because this is their visit. This isn't about us. So, and of course, in his case, this was very much about him. This was an ancestral pilgrimage for him. He's a Russell. And a shout out to Richard Duffy, who gave that talk last May, gave us a lot more information about the Russells, and was also generous enough to answer some questions I had to connect the dots, so we could give Kurt a real full picture of his ancestors, because he's coming to his ancestral home. So I knew he'd be interested in that, but from the moment, this spoke to his energy, from the moment he came in, we thought we'd start in this room with his, more space and air. And he got right into the exhibit items, and we just followed him around because he had such energy to get so excited about everything he was looking at. And because he's done some period movies, there are things that reminded him of things he knew, and it's just, he was a participant in this tour. He was not a visitor or just, he wasn't gonna just shut up and listen. He was part of it. And as you can see from the film, opening doors, looking here and there, I mean, he was at home in his ancestral home, and he was like, it was like an investigative approach to everything. Every room we went into, he found something, he went right to it, and so that's why we really had to follow his lead. This was not a tour with the usual flow. And I think the task that I had, I guess, was to make sure we share with him everything we normally share with a visitor, and certainly a Russell descendant. So that became the challenge, because everything was going to be sort of out of order because we were following his lead. But I have to say that some of the things that impressed him, I remember, I think it was the courage and the bravery of the people here and his own ancestor. And I think he admired that, and this quote that has come down that we share with people, that when Jason was advised by neighbors to go off into hiding to safety with his wife and children, and he says, an Englishman, his home is his castle, whether or not he said that, we're not sure, but that it does have us pause and take a look at what that meant at that time. And the one moment I saw this real aha expression come over his face was when this whole notion of his ancestor, as well as everybody else involved, they were British subjects. But by the time the Russells had been here for generations by 1775. So they were evolving into an American identity, because it took grit, it took resourcefulness. When you think about all the things it took to be a colonist here, they were, so he's saying in that statement, I'm staying to fight who? His own army. So even though they saw themselves as English subjects, and they weren't thinking about independence at that point, because they just wanted to be left alone and do their own thing, because they did have some autonomy. And that resonated with him, and I think just the courage and the bravery. And my favorite moment, I had several, but one of my favorite moments was and I have to say, I was so impressed with how organized the media was. They were so well behaved, and they were so organized. And to see and hear Kurt Russell tell the story that so many of us are passionate about telling, even some Russell descendants that come, to hear probably the most high-profile Russell descendant tell it in front of the media. So this is really, we're always trying to promote this and get this out, and here is the highest profile Russell descendant we have telling the media. And I don't know what he had in his hand, but I don't know what he would have done without his little rolled up piece of paper pointing to everything on that painting and telling them just how it happened. And I'm thinking, sure, come and do tours. Come and do a celebrity
That's the cover
tour.
of the Boston Herald on July 5th. So one thing that we do in media relations is always try to look out for play and placement. Well, I was a reporter for the Boston Globe my first half of my career, so I can be critical. The Globe didn't come. They were the only media outlet in Boston that didn't send a reporter. They took our photos and took the news release and ran it prominently. The Herald came. And when we knew that, we told the editor of the Herald, hey, the Globe's not here. It's the whole front page of the Boston Herald on July 5th. And it's him with the paper, and the quote is, he was a badass dude. That's the front page of the Boston Herald on July 5th, 2025. It's Kurt Russell, and it was the Russell of history, they called it. And it was the quote from him, but holding that piece of paper.
Yeah, and I think the logical connection we make is, okay, film star. Wouldn't this make a great movie? And he didn't even start the tour. He was in this room and he saw something that prompted him. He thought of Samuel L. Jackson playing a certain part in this whole story. Because Matt had hung out with him the night before, so Matt gave him the off-campus tour. So he and Boston came for the tour knowing a lot already. And I wasn't too afraid about repetition, because once you're hearing it on site, it has, another kind of meaning. But yeah, let's hope this is a movie.
For me, this whole. Thank you. For me, the weekend began, I think it was July 2nd. I got a call from Deputy Town Manager Bongiorno, who said, "Are you going to be around town July 4th weekend?" I said, "Yes." "Okay, I can tell you, and you can't tell anybody else." And she described why, because this was a private tour for a particular guest, who just happens to be the 8th generation patrilineal descendant of the guy whose name is on this house. Most of what I'm going to remember was Kurt's enthusiasm that several people have noted. He began leading the tour for, I think, the second or the third scrum of reporters. Mostly, I remember him saying, "Boston, come over here. Boston, you got to take a look at this." And he's pointing out things in this room, in the details of the painting. He's really relating to the story. And I don't know if it's a combination of embodying the personal history, reading in his mind the outline of the day and the story, and getting a feel for his 6th great-grandfather, Jason, as a character, as an actual human being, somebody who lived and literally died here. He was embodying it, and he was just emanating this enthusiasm for the whole thing. So after the different scrums have finished, we had a quick lunch, great sandwiches, blue ribbon barbecue, and we all sat at the picnic table in the front yard. After that, we walked over from here to the old burying ground, and I showed him the notes that I had written up about his family genealogy. And again, he's pointing out things to his son Boston, saying, "Look, your grandmother told me about her, and I think I remember. Yeah, they came here," and he's putting together the family stories as we walk over. But boy, was he struck to see the actual headstones. I mean, we kind of take it for granted, but how often have you ever seen a colonial headstone that doesn't say here, that says, "Here lies," or "Sacred to the memory of," Jason Russell, barbarously murdered. It's in the stone there. It's a war cry. And he kind of like rolled his eyes, like, wow, they actually carved that into it. And I said, "Here's Jason." And because it's the typical old burying ground in a New England town, this is where everybody was buried. So here's Jason. Here's his widow, Elizabeth. If he actually said those words about an Englishman's house being his castle, the quote came down through the Cutter family. There's his neighbor, ACMi Cutter, a few stones over that way. It's everybody together from life to death, and they're right here. And he was kind of quiet, I think, for the first part of the day, looking around and realizing this is where the story ends. They're the heroics, the tragic deaths here, the fighting, the day the war came right through the house. But that's where it ended. And even after all that we had told him through the day, he still looked like he was absorbing something new about the impact that, it ended with bodies in the ground. And here's where the bodies are. And I think it was the right kind of conclusion to the day before the concert and the fireworks and the Esplanade and the rest of that. It made a very deep impression on him. And he was relating to his 6th great-grandfather on quite a personal basis by the end of the day. And it was a very, very special kind of tour to have been invited to take part in. Thank you.
So we have plenty of time for some questions, if anybody has any, and I'll be glad to repeat them so that everybody hears.
I'm really curious to know which of Jason Russell's sons Kurt Russell is descended from.
Did everybody hear that? Okay, you have a good voice.
Richard Duffy might know.
Oh, we don't know.
I'm sorry, if I had those notes, I could have told you, with the family charts all laid out, but I'm sorry, I've forgotten.
Yeah, we have that laid out, which we can make accessible, of course. We just have to, I don't have that on the top of my head, unfortunately.
Well, I'll follow up because I can't wait to find out. So, yeah, so does Kurt Russell have any New England roots?
Yes.
He was born in Springfield, I believe, but did not live in Mass for very long. He's a child actor, so he's been acting since he was, I think, 4 or 5 years old. Yeah.
Yes.
I've been reading a book by Philbrick, really focused on Bunker Hill, but he uses the word mononymy a lot to describe this period of history. Would we have been better off keeping the name Anonymy?
Well, it's a question that takes you back to the 1860s. And there must have been a very strong feeling in town at the time that this town of West Cambridge deserved its own name, something distinct, something that would represent itself and not call back to old Cambridge in any way. I would love to go kicking through the archives downstairs here and see if we have any more of the papers of George Wellington, because George Yates Wellington was the secretary of the town committee, a very important gentleman who came together in 1866, 1867, and eventually voted on recommending to town meeting changing the name of West Cambridge to Arlington. And they didn't go back to mononymy. They wanted a new name, and they wanted it to be Arlington. But I can't find any written evidence of why they chose that name Arlington. Now, we've surmised that because Arlington was a name that was known to every American at the time, from Arlington House, the Lee Estate in Virginia, the very new National Cemetery that was being created there at the time, we've surmised that Arlington was a very prominent name and attractive for many reasons. But I haven't seen it written down anyplace, and I'd love to see if somebody kept notes of that meeting where somebody suggested it. What's clear, though, is that mononymy was done with. They didn't want to use that name, and they wanted something new and distinct.
Jim?
I once attended a lecture by Richard Duffy on that topic. He said there were 4 different explanations, and nobody knew which one it was.
So Jim said he had learned from Richard Duffy that there were 4 different explanations for why Arlington was chosen, and he didn't know which one was the true one. Jean?
I'm curious, did someone need to make complex behind-the-scenes security arrangements? I mean, not only here in town, but to get down to the Esplanade?
Yeah. We did talk about that with his people, and the answer was security, not complex. He does not travel with an entourage. There's no bodyguards with him. He got off the train, and the Arlington PD picked him up. I mean, that's to be expected for running an event like this. But overall, no, there was nothing extravagant. We walked through the VIP area with 10,000 other VIPs at the Esplanade, but no, there was nothing different, and he didn't want anything different. But logistically, Christine might have a better answer.
We worked with the police department to make sure that we weren't sure what to expect. If the word got out, there could be crowds. We didn't want that. We just really couldn't handle it at that point. So we had our police department here to help support.
How did you get down to the Esplanade?
The police drove.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, our police chief.
That was a handy thing to have.
Yeah, she just gave up her weekend as well to
Police chief was here the
support.
whole time. And then from the Esplanade back to the hotel, the state police arranged transportation for him.
So I wonder what is the follow-up, for his future involvement or future visits? Or...
Colleen wants to know if we know anything about follow-up to the visit, what we might have in mind.
Yeah, so I spoke to Mr. Bogosian this year, because the idea was in December, January that we wanted to certainly extend the invitation. We've kept in touch with Boston, who's still doing research on the family very actively. So we have kept in touch with them. I've made my opinions known. I'm not from here, so I can say this. You got to have the battle. You have to do it. We have to be able to invite him to something. So I'll say this to a group of history buffs in a town that I think very, very highly of. Do the battle every year. The return on investment is tremendous. The expense, again, easy for me to say, I'm not paying the taxes in Arlington. The expense is low compared to so many of the things that you will do as a town. Do it. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back. Maybe, right now he's doing the Madison, which is a breakout hit right now. I believe got renewed for another season.
Streaming on Paramount.
Streaming on Paramount Plus. But he's interested, and his agent got back to me, and they were rolling it around, but we never pushed it super aggressively because there was nothing to invite him to this year.
Maybe a Kurt Russell Film Festival in the front lawn.
But the name, though, like from a PR perspective, like the town's not going to be Menominee, and the Battle of Menominee doesn't have the name recognition that Lexington and Concord has, and it probably never will. But it's a better movie. Most of the people who died on the first day of the Revolution died here in Menominee, and most of those people died here in this house. It's a much better. Lexington lasts 4 minutes. Concord is a shooting battle where the guy from Acton gets popped off in the first minute of the battle. That's dramatic. We win. We win. This is the better movie. So I do think there is something to be said for if the name Menominee is to continue on past America 250. I think Hollywood would have a story to tell here. I really do.
I would like to see the Battle of Menominee tied with Arlington. I'd like to see more. I was telling Matt, we need a bumper sticker or something that says, the Battle of Menominee, Arlington, Massachusetts. So we connect those two names. I mean, in this day and age of rebranding that everybody's doing, which seems to improve marketing, back then, to change your name when no other town did that, is kind of the kiss of death in history. And when I watched the Ken Burns series, and he mentions Menominee once, and of course we're all holding our breaths, right? And he never mentions it again, and I'm thinking, well, why would he? The town by that name doesn't exist. So, there are ways for us, I think, to link the Battle of Menominee with Arlington so that people make that connection. I guess that's the best we can do. And even when Hollywood does it, they've got to make the connection. This town is where you can come and see this monument to what happened that day.
Yeah, leading up to the 250th, 90% of what I was doing was marketing, and I found that it's like paddling upstream. No one knows the Battle of Menominee, which is very unfortunate. But especially we can compare it to that name brand, like John was saying, to Lexington and Concord. But bringing on a huge celebrity like Kurt Russell and tying him into directly to that. Really helped, and like John was saying, on that day alone, Menominee, the Battle of Menominee was known the most amount of times on that singular day. I even got a call from my fiance's grandmother and said, "Were you just on TV?" And she lives in Florida, so we had national, if not international, recognition on the Battle of Menominee thanks to Kurt Russell.
And Kurt himself was giving the playbook for how you all as a town can own this. It was the grit, the sacrifice, your home is your castle. He repeated that a number of times. He was very interested in the fact that his ancestor stood his ground or stood on his doorstep, and he was shot, like 7 or 8 times, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Many times, and stabbed and bayoneted. Kurt gave the playbook for this, which is, the Battle of Menominee is the end of the day when America's angry, when the Americans are PO'd. He used the saltier language, but that's it. That grit, that sort of American individualism doesn't exist in 1775 yet. You have 100 years before you start talking about the cowboys and that type of thing. This is of that theme. Where Lexington and Concord, Lexington was a failed delaying action, and Concord was the bridge. This is bloody. It's gritty. It's dirty. It's more warlike than the first 2 battles. So that uniqueness gives you something to build on in Arlington.
And that's the story that was told in the weeks immediately after April 19th as
PR,
well.
yeah.
Letters, diaries, what happened in Cambridge, as they called it. But they're incidents that we can put on the ground, put on the map right here in what's, in the location of this little village. We know from John Adams's diaries that he came up this way to inspect what had happened. Started trekking up the road from the old, college center in Old Cambridge and walked to Lexington. So he walked right through Menotomy, and he talked about the devastation, and he wrote into his diary, "This is what convinced me that the die had been cast."
Robert, would you tell us about the YouTube that you just passed on to me? People would be interested in that.
So last year about that time, there's a British YouTube history channel called History Hit. And it's presented by a man named Dan Snow. And he and his producer came out and they actually spent quite some time in the area, but they spent a day here with us and got the tour of the house. And our good friend Joel Bohe worked with him to talk through the ballistics analysis they had done to sort of figure out what we could about where the bullets were coming from. Some of the things that were discussed in the video that you just saw came from that work, at least some of it. So anyway, they made a video about it. It's a 4-pay channel, so it wasn't publicly available except to subscribers until yesterday. It's now on YouTube. It's called The Battle of Lexington and Concord, sort of the day that changed everything, or something like that. It's really quite good. It's pretty heavy on the musket balls, both here and in Concord as well. But yeah, there you go. But it is a good overview, and it's just part of the attention that we got last year at that time.
Well, I think this does it for us. Thank you all, panel. It was absolutely delightful and gave us a lot of info. And we here at the Society have one more meeting for this membership series, the lecture series, and that is Richard Duffy's talk, which is always the annual one we end with. But what's very nice is that he's going to be following up on all of this and talk about what was it like to live in this farmhouse after 1775. So it should be really fun to learn about. Thanks for coming again. Yeah.
ACMi productions are only made possible with your support. Visit patreon.com/ACMi to learn how you can help.